When we change our mindsets, we can change our outcomes. Save our lives from sadness, depression, and anxiety, thus giving us the freedom to live the life we want. Hi, I'm Stuart Haskin, founder of getsafe, and your host of the Movement for Change podcast. Hello, changemakers. It's Stuart, your podcast host. Today's special guest is a friend of mine, Jeff Brown. He's a 30-year retired sheriff that spent 12 years in child crimes. So he's seen a lot of things. Anyway, he's here to share many of the tactics that he's learned about predators and their behaviors. So let's get out of here and let's go make some change. Stuart Haskin, welcome back to Changing Mindsets, Changing Outcomes. I have Jeff Brown. You heard his mass bio earlier. Jeff, we're going to talk about online sexual predators, keeping our kids safe. So he's going to give us some tips on what to, as you know, he's worked in child crimes for over 12 years. Jeff, what do we do?
That's a good question. Where do you want me to start? I'll just go with some of the common questions that I was asked. We'll start with cell phones. Like, what age would you get your kid a cell phone? And I'm curious, what do you think the answer to that is?
Well, as you know, I teach safety, so I'm actually out of the consent, or out of the I'm in the minority because I feel it's a safety aspect. So I get my kids' phone sooner. Comes with lecturing and lessons, of course, but now I get calls. Hey, where's mom? Where's dad? Hey, I'm running home now. I like that communication. And then on the worst side of if there's some kind of threat at the school, I will at least have some contact with them. My wife, my daughter actually has an iWatch as well. So I like the communication. Some parents go, "What? You already give them a phone?" But I'm not talking about Facebook and social media. They have none of that I know of. But for the most part, I feel like it's a communication tool.
Okay, and we'll talk about the social media that you don't know about later. But I like your answer with that, and that's generally what I said. The benefits outweigh the negative for me. And my experience has been, even if you take your phone away from your kid, they'll use someone else's at school, or they'll borrow one or whatever. I am of the mindset that getting a kid a phone, the benefits outweigh the risk, personally. And if you don't get your kid a phone, they'll borrow one if there's someone close by. I've had people take the batteries from their kids' phones. Kids will get a battery from someone else. So you defeat the purpose of, keeping them away. I think knowledge is power, certainly with that. If you don't get them a phone, I've had parents say they're not getting a phone until they're 16. Personally, I don't believe in that. You're going to handicap them, I think, for the real world. Giving a kid a phone that's never had one at 16 years old has missed out on a lot of technology probably, and/or they've been using someone else's phone, has been my experience. Same with social media. It's not allowed at the home, many times they'll use it at the other parent's house or school or friend's phone or whatever. And oftentimes they have multiple social media accounts if it's not allowed. But
yeah, I mean, we're in an ever-changing world.
Yes.
So I get some old-fashioned parents or old-school parents. I didn't have a phone. We got along fine, but why? We didn't have streaming. I bet you have streaming at home back then. You had a black and white TV. Now you have a color. So things evolve. And we go through the phones. We check text messages, and honestly, that is how we found out about some. My daughter had been bullied a little bit, and that's how we found it. She didn't tell us. She was withdrawn. She was quiet. Something was wrong. Wouldn't talk to us. Couldn't get any answers out of her friend's mom. They didn't know either, and went through the chain and saw it. Hey, listen, you're not in trouble because obviously someone's being mean. Well, her mom's a principal, and it's like, that doesn't matter, but that's how we found out. So it helped us in that sense because there was a track in there. And that's what I am not a tech guru by no means. So, but not to be lazy. I think that's one of the biggest messages. If you decide the phone, it's going to be a great communication tool, but don't be lazy and not monitor it. I think that's
unfortunately, a lot of people will use a device like that as a babysitting tool. I see it at parties or whatever. They'll say, "Here, go play on the phone." Even at a very small age, they'll give a kid a phone to play with it. And it's amazing to me to watch a 4, 5, 6-year-old scroll through a web page that they like. And it's not exclusively just for kids. Anybody can be on that web page, posting stuff or putting videos or pictures or whatever. So I think you open up your children to see stuff that maybe they shouldn't.
And I think what you're saying, knowledge is power, because my kid comes up with the most random knowledge he has now. Yeah. It's like, I mean, I'm terrible at geography. Where is Saudi Arabia? I don't know. It's on a map here somewhere. I mean, and he'll give me the answer. The things he's learning, and my daughter as well, they're very current. So talking about that 16-year-old who's not going to be as current, because I know now if I don't understand something, I don't have to look it up anymore. Like old-fashioned, find a news article, then websites. Now you just go on YouTube. We can fix anything on YouTube. I tell them that. I go, I can't get this, I can't get this blender to work. Go on YouTube. So in that sense, I feel like I'm helping them do their research, which is very current now. So those, the later phone users maybe lose a little bit of that current stuff and what's going on in today's world. Now they know a little too much at times, because they see, we used to try and shield our kids from active shooters. And, even we just recently had a suicide by a principal in our district. Well, we know they know about it, so our job is to talk to them about it and say, this is, why it happened. Here's what sometimes people get sad, whatever the reason, we can come up with and talk to them about.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about that, and like I mentioned, somebody had captured all the Facebook posts of that principal that killed himself and put it on the internet. So I didn't look at Facebook, but I was able to read all of his posts about his pending suicide. So I would guarantee probably 80% of the school has read those or more of those kids. They all, I'm sure, are passing around. So they know at least what he wrote about killing himself, which is sad to me.
Yeah. And we talked to our older one. Just, hey, this happened. I know. Our friends told me. So it already going around. It's an interesting world. And I think to try and stop it versus evolve with it, I think that you'll do a detriment to your kids as well. You have to keep evolving what's going on because you can't shield them from everything. And then, like you said, 16, 17, 18, all of a sudden they get this world of info and every aspect without understanding rules of, don't reply with names, don't give out descriptive behavior. My son's very good at, he plays some games which we monitor, but he never gives out his name. And he got mad at one of his closest friends because the closest friend called him by his name over the internet. And he came up and told me, he goes, he called me by name. And I talked to the dad. I said, hey, let's make sure we keep everything confidential if we're going to allow them to do these games. Because there's only so much Overwatch you can have while they're in the game. Yeah. That's the little scary part, but you got to kind of keep an eye on it again.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen some of those, like people will post online, hey, this guy was bullying me, and then you'll see other people say, well, I think he goes to this school, he's certainly in this state. Based on the background, they figure out who that person is, where they are, and an incredible amount of information about him. And then they, I know he plays soccer, I wonder if he's in this league. So they essentially could be tracked down pretty easily sometimes.
So let's look at internet and our phone browsing and maybe a couple tips for parents.
For parents, I think, and a lot of what I'm talking about is age dependent, right? You can't really, a 6-year-old or 7-year-old, you can set different rules in a 14, 15, 16-year-old, certainly. And there's going to be differences of what they're doing, probably. Not giving any personal information. They call it PII. Personal, what does that stand? Personal information. But a lot of people call it different things. No name, no date of birth, no address, even city or school. I would even hazard activities. Because if they're in a small city and you're on a soccer team, it's going to be pretty easy to figure out when they practice and where they play.
Yeah, we've had that in the past where they gave out information like that. Oh, I can't tell you where I'm at, but I'm playing soccer at 3:30, and I live in Huntington Beach. So there's a pretty simple weeding out purposes.
Yes.
So I agree with that.
PII, personal identifying information. I remember that now. So talk to your kids about that. And yourself, make sure you don't do that kind of stuff. It's funny, I'm a different generation than, kids, and I see my generation posting stuff about where they live or what they're doing, what they're going to do, and people in my occupation, and I don't think it's safe. I don't think it's...
You know what drives me crazy? Hey, finally we're going to Hawaii. We're leaving on the 12th. Yeah. So everyone in the world knows you're going to be gone. The 12th.
Because a month ago you put where you just moved to what city and pictures of your house and boat or whatever. Yeah.
And the nice stuff in your house.
Yeah. So one of the other things that, because technology has changed so much, I've had cases so simply that, hey, let your coach know you're not going to be at soccer tomorrow because we have this appointment. And you tell your kid, let your coach know. And I've had parents do that. And so then I ask the parents, well, how are they going to do that? Well, I think he's going to call him. No, a kid's not going to call him. I've had parents that ask, I go, well, ask your kid. Hey, how'd you get a hold of your coach? Well, he plays a game I play. What? Your coach at school plays this game? Well, yeah, a bunch of us play with him. They would have never known had they not asked. Right. So the kid tells him in game, hey, I'm not going to be in practice tomorrow. Oh, that's so cool. That's okay. Maybe we can get lunch or whatever.
Which, that second part leads to predator behavior. The first part is gaming, because I don't know. I don't play games. Is that socially acceptable that someone over 18, 19, 20, 25 is playing with kids?
No.
Okay.
No. But it's very,
it's weird to me. I just
it is, but it's incredibly common.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon, believe it or not, that school resource officers have phone numbers that they give out that they can text. Students text them or student leaders text them. Personally, I don't think it's a good idea. You need some type of
barrier. So so I'm going to counter a little bit. Like nowadays, like at getsafe, we're building this bridge of divide, communication lines between schools, resource officers, and students, and teachers, and everyone communicate. If he or she had a phone that was designated for that, because now kids don't call and talk.
Correct.
So it would give them more opportunities to have some insight.
If he or anyone else assigned to that school, they show up and say, here's your phone for the day, I'm all over that. Right. I think that's great. Okay. The problem is 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, one of the kids reaches out to whoever, coach assistant or teacher's assistant that's volunteering at the school. I don't think that's appropriate.
Agreed. I think if we give them boundaries, and like I would like a school resource. I mean, here's the deal. Things can always go south. With a good mindset, with an honorable mindset, it would be nice that if they could reach them and say, hey, listen, I saw this. Billy was talking about bringing a gun. Mary had a knife. Something to those ends. Now, I think it's up to the officer as well to keep it appropriate. Because we have a former school resource officer on our staff, and he still is connected with people because he's had kids talk suicide. He's had suicides. So he keeps the communication open. But everything is, he understands the line. That's what, I mean, if they create the line, I think that is the...
And you can do that with education, certainly with your kid, depending, if you're a good parent, absolutely. But like I said, unfortunately, hey, go tell your coach not going to be there tomorrow. Kid goes in his room, closes his door, and the parents don't know they don't know if this boundary is being crossed by anybody. But be the kid reaching out to this person or the person they're communicating with reaching out. So
tracking is better by text. Now, I don't understand how you could track in a game. Is the conversation recorded, or is it nothing? Or, I mean, you can always let me see your phone. Okay, you text your coach. He said, no problem. Hope you get better or whatever. Or I'll see you in the next practice. That's all fair. That's all good. If you see something, the next step, like you said, hey, no big deal. I can catch you up on a private practice. You and I can meet at the school earlier. Then we start seeing that's just super big red flags for sure on that one. We want to I want to be able to track and different things. I don't I'm looking at older kids also in high school, and we see things that happen. Of course, with teachers are having affairs with
the argument you bring up is a real valid point. If you have a kid that his whole life he's wanted to be a baseball player, and he misses practice, and he's in a travel league, and he's doing really, really well, and the coach was working with him with something, and that extra practice is important to the kid, absolutely. I don't think that they shouldn't do it, but as a parent, you should go.
And for me, I taught martial arts most of my life. I would tell the parent,
yes,
bring, and you come, because also we're talking about school resource officer, but look at it, fitness instructors, martial arts instructors. We always, in our Get Safe, because we do a lot of one-on-ones, we always make sure there is a neutral third party in the room, whether it's a parent, caregiver, someone's in the room, because it puts a safety barrier for everyone. And that's what we would make sure, like with the coach. If I was coaching, I'd say, hey, ask your parents if they can do it, let them call me and say it's okay, and then have them show up.
Yes.
Because you just don't want to be you and that kid.
Correct.
It's just, there's too much at risk, I think.
Correct.
For either a real report or a false report. You never know, as you must have seen those in your days.
Yes. And, I think having a third party, depending on what it is, if it's inside, that's a good idea. But a lot of people say, what third party? I get it. I get it. You have to survive. You have to function. You have to raise your kids. Everyone's busy. I get all that. But, it's a risk versus reward.
Yeah. I mean, that's the difficulty for us as parents. So I got to figure out how to get there. If it's going to be an extra, or we do it on a weekend when I'm off. Just tell your coach, can we do it on Saturday? Because you and your mom, you and your mom, or my mom, or your mom and your dad are off that day, so someone can figure out.
Welcome to Get Safe, a proud provider of peace officer standards and training, where strong communities are built alongside law enforcement. Get Safe has taught thousands of law enforcement personnel through the years, changing mindsets so that we can have positive outcomes in the field. Our ultimate goal is to always ensure a safe interaction for law enforcement and community, never foregoing our tactics and always enhancing our toolbox. My name is Stuart Haskin, founder of Get Safe. Thank you for all you do in keeping our community safe, and we hope you join our movement for change.
But it was interesting. Okay, so we talked about internet activity, of course. Cameras. Everything has a camera now.
Everything has a camera. That should have been covered when the phone was handed to the kid.
What about on the computer cameras as well, right?
Yeah.
So you're in there and you're in the back field. So some safety tips on what to do for your backgrounds if you're in.
Just like as a parent, be smart about it. You can do some internet research, what to have, what not to have in your backgrounds.
Right.
Like watching this, you could figure out real quick where we are and where we're talking from pretty easily. And kids don't understand, like pictures have identifying information embedded. So if someone were to give me a picture that wasn't uploaded to a media that scrubs those, it's called metadata. So any picture on my phone, you can pull it up with software and it'll show the GPS coordinates where it was taken. And a lot of people don't understand that. And it shows the phone device that took it. So things like that. Some media platforms, my understanding, don't scrub that metadata, and some do. Most of the popular ones do scrub it, so it wouldn't have identifying information, but the backgrounds oftentimes.
And then also just seeing the background, right?
Yeah,
even a picture of Troy High School. Yeah. Oh, you go to that high school. So we can see those. Those are the backgrounds. Even, and then we'll talk about adults in another episode. But those are the things we also talk about. Is hey, watch your backgrounds and everything. And again, how much should a kid be, talking to someone else? Now, FaceTime is huge, and that's what got our kids through COVID.
Yeah.
Because they had some social interaction. They almost didn't miss it because they felt like they were there. My daughter cooks with her friends. They make their lunch together.
Yeah. So
it was like they're there if it's those two. Now, I'm assuming it's a fairly safe platform if only two of them are there, but I don't know. If someone can crack it or not. Those are the things that we watch still, because now they're in our home, yeah. But it's just the other friend, and we're in their home as well. But
yeah, during COVID, a friend of mine's daughter did PE via Zoom.
Okay.
And I was like, well, how effective can that be? She wound up throwing up because she was doing push-ups and in her room, and it was hot, and it was, the heater's on, and it was funny because she's in her room, she's not going to have on gym clothes, and so I'm like, for me, I was like kind of impressed that their gym teacher was able to convey them enough to make them push themselves hard enough to throw up. It was interesting. But.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, we have the gaming aspect. How do we safeguard gaming?
Gaming, just talk to your kids. The biggest thing here is know what they're doing. They're going to want to discuss it with you. They'll discuss the good parts of it. My son grew up gaming. There was a point that I had to intervene with some of the comments from some of the games that he was dealing with. But knowledge is power. Know what the game is. Have them show it to you. Trust me. Ask them about it. Sit down with them. You probably don't want to do that, or you may or may not be interested in it. Have them explain to you what they do, how they communicate. See who their friends are on the game. Have them explain it to you. Who do you play with? Or you play on a team? Who else on the team? Show me this.
Because in our house, Roblox and Fortnite was big. Now Roblox, and then Oculus.
Yes.
That's that 3D that he's always yelling at somebody. And I think, it is a virtual game as well. So those are the things that, you're right, understanding more what they're doing, seeing what they're doing, seeing who they're talking to. Is there any shortcuts, or it's just, there isn't kind of like a site you can go on?
I'm not a big fan of kids being in the room with the door closed.
Right.
Just because that leads to so much. It's a small thing. Is it going to prevent it? Maybe, maybe not. It might give you a false sense of security, but on the other hand, it might give your kids a little sense of they have to watch what they do or say. Yeah. You could hear them. We had a friend that middle of the night heard their daughter giving street address or personal information and interjected into that and realized, okay, my kid shouldn't be doing that. Right. This kid knew better, but did it nonetheless. So I think that's a small thing. Having open line of communication with your kids is really, really the key.
Yeah. Well, and what about when the kids are closed off? Because a lot of times, hey, how's your day? Fine. Hey, how's that game? Great. What you're going to get at times. So I guess you would take it as opportunities to have conversations, teachable moments, something that brings. I always would tell people, go get a hot chocolate with your kid. Get out of the premises, talk about, say what's going on. Get away from the, and it's not eliminating the parent-kid thing, but it's giving them a kind of a more open era to be open and honest. Yeah. Because my daughter is not super forthcoming with us for some reason. We're always, you're not getting in trouble, this and this. And her friend says everything. So that's how we hear stuff. But hopefully the continued communication will keep building that. All right, we had social media, same thing, I guess. Give us 3 sum up tips on our 22-minute to work or home work or workout podcast.
So for me, the most important thing, again, this will cover basically the age span. Open line of communication with your kids. Have them trust you. Have them like you. Age dependent on that, maybe a little bit. Yeah. And just be involved in their life. Singly, one of the most important things that I've learned after school activities. Know what your kid does. You're at work, your kid's home from school, hanging out at the bagel shop for 4 or 5 hours with their friends probably isn't the best thing to do. The problem with that, you have older kids with younger kids. And if your kid's one of the older kids, you don't want them hanging out with the younger kids and vice versa. So after school activities and be involved in your kids.
And our area is Taco Bell after school, and that has been a big no. I think, and I'm going to add one to it, is take a breath for parents, because there's a tendency to punish even though the kid wasn't doing anything. And so this is how they'll read it. Like if you hear something going off in Fortnite, all right, you're off that game. Well, they weren't doing anything. It was someone trying to lead them to it. So I would converse, take some time, breathe, because don't react in the moment, and think of something that's fair that will not make them shut you out of their lives on that. Almost like that whole behavior, like, we always do it. I know most parents do it. If you're at a party and you're 16, which our kids aren't yet, but we tell parents, and you're drinking, or you're not even drinking, you're surrounded by it, and you always call us no matter what. Even if you're drinking and you're not supposed to be, we'll talk about the punishment later, but we want you home safe. That's the kind of communication I think is super important.
And communication is a two-way street. And if your kids come to you with an issue, the fact that they're coming to you is an issue for them. Yeah. And if you punish them and fly off the handle with that, they're probably not going to come to you again. So, and even my own family has come to me with, when the call starts, they're crying. My sister's crying. Here's what I found, and sends me a picture. And I told her, calm down. Yeah. Send me other pictures and I'll come over and talk to you and your son about it. And it wasn't a big deal. And I was able to...
Yeah, and it's... Well, and, I remember talking to he's an LA SWAT guy. We were going to train together. And I said, hey, just always be... when you talk to your kids, sometimes we always give that, if anyone hurts my kids, I'm going to kill them. Which is probably true. But you don't want the kids to know that. Because I remember counseling a woman, 15 and a half, and the neighbor kept exposing himself to her. And I go, did you tell your parents? No, my dad would kill him. And then my dad would go to jail. And then I won't have a dad. So she already thought that out. Where now you always want to say, hey, I just want you to talk to me. And I even talked to a friend probably a couple of months ago. Because he was, dads want to be superheroes. But in this point, you want the kid to be able to go, we're going to talk about this. And be a part of the solution as well. All right, if you can change anything professionally, personally in this world today, what would you do? Go back to no internet?
No, I like the internet. I think probably people to be nicer to each other. Yeah. Globally.
I agree. All right, Jeff, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining our 22-minute podcast, which may be 22-minute-ish. But we'll be back again with Jeff and level 2, podcast 2. We can edit that out. Okay.
Thank you for tuning in to our podcast, Movement for Change. We hope that our discussion has left you with new perspectives and insights that can help you change mindsets and save lives. Please visit us at getsafeusa.com for resources, trainings, and if there's a topic you want to hear about or you have questions, please email us at info@getsafeusa.com. Together, we can make the change we want to see.